Introduction to the core teachings of Buddhism. As a humble monk dedicated to the teachings of the Buddha, I invite you to join me on a journey into the essence of Buddhist philosophy. The teachings we will explore today form the foundation of a path that leads away from suffering and towards true peace and liberation. The essence of Buddhism can be distilled into a single, profound principle. All things should not be clung to. This teaching, rooted in the wisdom of the Buddha, encourages us to recognize the impermanence of all things and to release our attachments to the transient and ever-changing nature of the world. Let us begin by understanding this central message and how it can guide us in our daily lives, providing a way to navigate the challenges we face with clarity and compassion. Understanding the nature of attachment. At the heart of the Buddha's teachings lies the understanding that attachment is the root of all suffering. When we cling to the idea of a permanent self, to material possessions, or to our own beliefs and identities, we create the conditions for pain and discontentment. To truly grasp this, consider how often our minds are consumed by desires, whether for wealth, status, or even love. These desires are born from a belief that by obtaining these things, we will secure happiness. Yet as soon as these desires are fulfilled, new ones arise, perpetuating a cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. Reflect upon a time when you desired something intensely, only to find that once obtained, the satisfaction was fleeting. This is the nature of attachment, promising fulfillment, but ultimately leading to further longing and suffering. To apply this teaching, we must cultivate a mindset of non-attachment. This does not mean we should reject all things or avoid responsibilities, but rather that we should engage with the world without clinging to outcomes. By doing so, we open ourselves to a deeper, more lasting peace that is not dependent on external conditions. The three forms of disease. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a metaphor that likens human suffering to three types of disease: physical, mental, and spiritual. These diseases are not merely ailments of the body or mind, but are rooted in deeper layers of our being. Physical disease is easily recognized and treated with medicine and care. Mental disease, though more subtle, affects the mind and can lead to distress and confusion. However, it is the spiritual disease, born from ignorance and the attachment to self, that is the most pervasive and harmful. Imagine a person who is burdened by anger or resentment. They may not recognize it, but this state of mind is a form of spiritual disease. It arises from a deep-seated belief in the self as separate and threatened by others. This disease affects not only the individual, but spreads suffering to those around them. To heal from spiritual disease, one must first recognize it for what it is: a misunderstanding of the true nature of reality. Through the practice of mindfulness, meditation, and the study of the Dharma, we can begin to uncover the roots of our suffering and work towards healing. This is not a quick process, but with perseverance, we can transform our minds and hearts, freeing ourselves from the bondage of ignorance. The illusion of I and mine. The belief in a permanent self, the I and mine, is the cornerstone of spiritual disease. This attachment to self is an illusion, a mirage that leads us away from truth and into the clutches of suffering. When we identify with our bodies, our thoughts, or our possessions as mine, we create a division between ourselves and the world. This division is the source of much of our fear, anger, and jealousy. We see others as threats or rivals, and we cling to our possessions as though they define our worth. But the Buddha teaches us that what we call self is merely a collection of fleeting experiences, constantly changing and never truly fixed. To believe in a permanent self is to cling to a shadow, chasing something that can never be held. Consider how your mood shifts throughout the day. One moment happy, the next moment sad. If we were truly a fixed self, these changes would not occur. This insight helps us see the truth, that we are not our emotions, our thoughts, or even our bodies. By releasing the grip of I and mine, we free ourselves from the chains of delusion and step closer to liberation. Practices to overcome spiritual disease. The Buddha has shown us many ways to overcome the spiritual disease of attachment and ignorance. Among these, three practices stand out: understanding dependent origination, contemplating the three marks of existence, and reflecting on the five aggregates. Dependent origination teaches us that all phenomena arise from a web of causes and conditions. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is interconnected. By understanding this, we begin to see that the self is not an independent entity, but is dependent on countless factors. This insight helps us break the cycle of suffering by addressing its root causes. The three marks of existence, impermanence, suffering, and non-self, reveal the true nature of reality. By contemplating these marks, we realize that nothing is permanent, that suffering arises from clinging, and that there is no unchanging self. This understanding naturally leads to a loosening of attachments and a deep sense of peace. The five aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, are the components that make up our experience of being. By examining these aggregates, we come to see that they are transient and not truly self. This reflection helps us detach from the illusion of self and reduces our suffering. These practices are not mere intellectual exercises. They are tools to be used in daily life, guiding us towards a deeper understanding of the world and our place within it. By integrating these practices into our lives, we can gradually free ourselves from the bonds of ignorance and step onto the path of true liberation. Reflections on freedom and self-overcoming. As we delve deeper into the teachings of the Buddha, we are reminded of the immense freedom that lies at the heart of these teachings, the freedom to shape our own lives, to overcome our limitations, and to realize our true nature. This freedom is not merely the freedom to act, but the freedom to let go of what binds us. It is the freedom to see through the illusions of self and to live in harmony with the truth of impermanence and interdependence. In this context, the concept of self-overcoming becomes crucial. The Buddha's path is one of continuous growth and transformation, where we are encouraged to constantly examine and refine our thoughts, words, and actions. This process of self-overcoming is not a rejection of the self, but a deepening of our understanding of what the self truly is. Consider how we often hold on to beliefs or habits that no longer serve us. These attachments can be seen as barriers to our growth. By consciously choosing to let go of these barriers, we engage in the process of self-overcoming, moving closer to the realization of our true potential. This journey requires courage and mindfulness. It asks us to be present with our experience, to question our assumptions, and to embrace change with an open heart. In doing so, we not only free ourselves from suffering, but also cultivate the wisdom and compassion necessary to help others on their path. Final reflections and practical guidance. As we bring these teachings together, we see that the path to liberation is one of both understanding and practice. The insights we gain from contemplating the nature of self, attachment, and impermanence must be woven into the fabric of our daily lives. Every moment presents an opportunity to practice. Whether we are engaging in our work, caring for our loved ones, or simply sitting in meditation, we can bring the principles of non-attachment, mindfulness, and compassion into each action. I encourage you to take these teachings to heart, to reflect on how they apply to your own life, and to integrate them into your daily routine. By doing so, you will find that the peace and freedom promised by the Buddha's teachings are not distant ideals but realities that can be experienced here and now. Remember, the path is not about perfection, but about progress. Each step you take towards understanding and letting go brings you closer to the liberation that lies at the heart of the Dharma. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the core teachings of Buddhism. May these teachings guide you towards a life of wisdom, compassion, and inner peace. Understanding the roots of suffering. As we continue our exploration of the teachings of the Buddha, it is essential to delve deeper into the understanding of suffering, what it is, where it comes from, and how it can be overcome. The Buddha taught that suffering is an inherent part of life, but he also provided us with a path to transcend it. Suffering, or dukkha, is not just the obvious pain we experience when things go wrong. It also includes a subtle dissatisfaction we feel even when life is going well. The sense that something is always missing, that there is always something more we need to be truly happy. This pervasive sense of discontent arises from our attachments and our misunderstandings about the nature of reality. One of the key misunderstandings that leads to suffering is the belief in a permanent self. We hold on to the idea that there is an unchanging I at the center of our experience. And from this belief, we develop attachments to things that we perceive as mine: our bodies, our possessions, our relationships, and our beliefs. But the Buddha teaches us that everything is impermanent, and by clinging to these impermanent things, we set ourselves up for inevitable suffering. To see through this illusion, we must develop wisdom, or prajna. Wisdom allows us to perceive the true nature of reality, to see that everything is interconnected and that nothing exists in isolation. By cultivating this wisdom, we begin to loosen our attachments and reduce our suffering. The practice of mindfulness, or sati, is one of the most powerful tools the Buddha has given us to cultivate wisdom and reduce suffering. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in each moment, aware of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment or attachment. It is through mindfulness that we develop the clarity to see things as they really are. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice how our minds are constantly reacting to the world around us. We see how we cling to pleasant experiences and push away unpleasant ones, and how this constant striving creates a sense of tension and unease. Mindfulness helps us break this cycle by allowing us to simply observe our experiences without getting caught up in them. For example, when you feel anger rising within you, instead of reacting immediately, you can take a moment to observe the sensation of anger. Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts are associated with it? By bringing mindful awareness to the emotion, you can begin to see it as just another passing experience, not something that defines you or that you need to act on. In this way, mindfulness becomes a doorway to liberation. It helps us see the impermanence of all things and loosens the grip of attachment. With regular practice, mindfulness can transform our relationship with ourselves and the world, leading to greater peace and freedom. Cultivating compassion. While mindfulness and wisdom are essential, they must be balanced with compassion, or karuna. Compassion is the deep wish for others to be free from suffering, coupled with a commitment to help alleviate that suffering whenever possible. In Buddhism, compassion is seen as an essential quality that arises naturally as we develop wisdom and see the interconnectedness of all beings. Compassion begins with ourselves. Often, we are our own harshest critics, holding ourselves to impossible standards and punishing ourselves for our perceived shortcomings. The Buddha teaches that before we can truly be compassionate to others, we must learn to be compassionate to ourselves. This means accepting ourselves as we are, with all our flaws and imperfections, and treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend. Once we have cultivated self-compassion, we can extend this compassion to others. We begin to see that just as we wish to be free from suffering, so too do all beings. This understanding motivates us to act in ways that are kind, supportive, and beneficial to others. For instance, when we encounter someone who is angry or upset, instead of reacting with anger or judgment, we can try to understand the suffering that lies beneath their emotions. By responding with empathy and kindness, we not only help ease their suffering but also reduce our own. Embracing impermanence. Another key teaching of the Buddha that is closely related to the concepts of suffering and attachment is the idea of impermanence, or anicca. The Buddha taught that all things are in a constant state of flux. Nothing remains the same from one moment to the next. This truth can be difficult to accept, as we often desire stability and permanence in our lives. However, it is by embracing impermanence that we can find true freedom. Impermanence is evident in every aspect of our lives. Our bodies age, our relationships change, and even our thoughts and emotions are fleeting. When we resist this natural flow of change, we create suffering for ourselves. We cling to the past, worry about the future, and miss the beauty of the present moment. To embrace impermanence is to live fully in the present. It means letting go of our attachments to things as they are, or as we wish them to be, and opening ourselves to the reality of change. This does not mean that we do not care about the things we love, but rather that we appreciate them fully in each moment, knowing that they will not last forever. By embracing impermanence, we can approach life with a sense of openness and curiosity. We become less fearful of change and more accepting of the natural ebb and flow of life. This acceptance brings a profound sense of peace, as we no longer cling to the impossible ideal of permanence. Living the middle way. The middle way is a central concept in Buddhism, representing a path of moderation that avoids the extremes of indulgence and asceticism. The Buddha discovered the middle way after experiencing both the luxuries of palace life and the severe austerities of ascetic practices. He realized that neither extreme led to true happiness or liberation. The middle way is not just about avoiding physical extremes, but also about finding balance in all aspects of life: our thoughts, emotions, actions, and relationships. It encourages us to live a life of moderation where we do not cling to pleasures or punish ourselves with harshness, but instead find a harmonious balance that leads to well-being. In our daily lives, the middle way can be applied by seeking balance in how we approach work, rest, relationships, and even our spiritual practice. For example, in our work life, it means not overworking to the point of burnout, nor being lazy and neglecting our responsibilities. In our relationships, it means caring deeply for others without becoming overly attached or dependent on them for our happiness. The middle way also teaches us to approach our spiritual practice with balance. While it is important to be dedicated and disciplined, it is equally important to be gentle and patient with ourselves. If we push ourselves too hard, we risk becoming frustrated and discouraged. If we are too lax, we may become complacent. By walking the middle way, we can sustain our practice over the long term, allowing it to grow and flourish naturally. The role of meditation in Buddhist practice. Meditation, or bhavana, plays a vital role in Buddhist practice. It is the primary tool we use to cultivate mindfulness, develop wisdom, and deepen our understanding of the nature of reality. Through meditation, we train our minds to focus, observe, and penetrate the layers of illusion that cloud our perception. There are many forms of meditation in Buddhism, each with its own purpose and benefits. One of the most common forms is samatha, or concentration meditation, where the practitioner focuses on a single object, such as the breath, to calm the mind and develop mental stability. This practice helps to still the constant chatter of the mind and create the clarity needed for deeper insight. Another important form is vipassana, or insight meditation, which involves observing the impermanent, unsatisfactory, and selfless nature of all phenomena. Through vipassana, we begin to see the true nature of reality, and this insight leads to the gradual dissolution of attachment and ignorance. Meditation is not just a practice that we do on the cushion. It is something we carry with us into our daily lives. As we cultivate mindfulness in meditation, we learn to apply it to every aspect of our lives, whether we are eating, walking, working, or interacting with others. This continuous practice of mindfulness transforms our everyday actions into opportunities for growth and awakening. Connecting with the Sangha. The Sangha, or community of practitioners, is one of the three jewels of Buddhism, along with the Buddha and the Dharma. The Sangha provides support, guidance, and inspiration on the path to awakening. Being part of a community of like-minded individuals helps to reinforce our commitment to practice and allows us to learn from the experiences of others. In the Sangha, we find a sense of belonging and connection that is vital for our spiritual journey. It is a place where we can share our joys and challenges, receive encouragement, and give support to others. The Sangha reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles and that the path to liberation is one that is walked together. Engaging with the Sangha can take many forms, from attending group meditation sessions and Dharma talks to participating in retreats or simply sharing meals and conversations with fellow practitioners. Each of these activities helps to strengthen the bonds of community and deepens our understanding of the teachings. The Sangha also plays a crucial role in preserving and transmitting the teachings of the Buddha. Through the collective efforts of the community, the Dharma is kept alive and relevant for future generations. By connecting with the Sangha, we become part of a living tradition that has been passed down through the ages, ensuring that the wisdom and practices of the Buddha continue to flourish. Moreover, the Sangha provides a mirror for our own practice. In the presence of others, we can observe our tendencies, both positive and negative, and receive feedback that helps us grow. The shared experiences within the Sangha often illuminate aspects of ourselves that we may not notice in isolation, offering us opportunities for reflection and transformation. In times of doubt or difficulty, the Sangha serves as a refuge, a source of strength and encouragement. The collective energy of a practicing community can inspire us to persevere in our efforts, reminding us that we are part of something greater than ourselves. This collective support is invaluable on the path to liberation, where the journey can often feel long and challenging. Ultimately, the Sangha is not just a community, it is a living embodiment of the Buddha's teachings. By actively participating in and contributing to the Sangha, we uphold the teachings of the Buddha and help create a supportive environment where all can thrive on the path to awakening. In this way, the Sangha becomes both a guide and a companion on the journey to wisdom and compassion, helping each of us to realize our true potential and move closer to liberation. In conclusion, the Sangha is not merely a group of individuals, but a vital component of the spiritual path in Buddhism. It is within the Sangha that we find the strength, guidance, and companionship necessary to continue our journey towards liberation. By embracing the Sangha, we immerse ourselves in a tradition that nurtures our growth, deepens our understanding, and reminds us that we are never alone on this path. Let us cherish and contribute to this precious community, for in doing so, we uphold the teachings of the Buddha and support each other in realizing the ultimate goal of freedom from suffering.